Hi, my name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel. It has finally cooled down here, so I'm outside today. It's just a beautiful day, and I have some books that I would like to talk about, and I have some strong feelings about them, so I'm really excited to talk about them. So let's just jump right into the books for today. So the first book that I want to talk about is called Unmask Alice, LSD, Satanic Panic, and the Imposter Behind the World's Most Notorious Diaries by Rick Emerson. And this had the plot that I wanted to read. I was very excited about this because it's talking about the book that came out in 1971 called Go Ask Alice. And this is a book that I read in high school. It was, somebody passed it around on orchestra tour and everybody was reading it and like, oh, look what can happen if you get on drugs, you'll end up dead. You know, like it was a thing, right? And so I was interested to read a little bit about this and read about some of the ramifications of this kind of book, and I thought that the whole premise was really interesting. Now, the book is following the author of this book, some of her inspirations for her stories, and how it was marketed as nonfiction, but she made up large portions of what happened. And the book talks a lot about how in that time period there was a lot of group hysteria over the occult and people thinking that a lot was going on that probably wasn't, and I really thought that a lot of that was super interesting. So subject matter, super interesting, really enjoyed the reading, but then I got to the end and I just feel like something was off. So towards the beginning of the book, something tipped me off that I was like, this seems a little off. So the author says, okay, on average, Utah County, not the state, Utah County leads the nation in birth rate, volunteerism, literacy, and personal income growth. It also leads the nation in white-collar crime and Ponzi schemes and multi-level marketing scams. By some estimates, nearly 3/4 of U.S. investment fraud is connected to Utah County. Now, that seems like a really, really big claim. I mean, I know Utah. I know that there is a lot of multi-level marketing. There's a lot of scams. I completely understand that. I'm not saying that this doesn't have an element of truth in it, but the 3/4 of the entire United States fraud is in Utah County seems like a bit of a large statement, right? So I'm like, whoa, crazy. Where's the citation for that? And there wasn't one, and I could not find numbers to support this. So, I mean, if you just look up like investment fraud, it says Florida is actually the biggest in fraud, and white collar crime maybe, and you get all sorts of different statistics, but I wasn't finding this, even if I would look it up like exactly. So I'm not saying that there hasn't been any sort of study that has said that, but that it didn't have a citation and wasn't easily accessible made me a little like, ooh, for a book about debunking a book, you gotta be a little more rigorous. I mean, I did find one thing that said Utah has the highest rate of Ponzi schemes per capita in the United States, more than twice the rate of Florida, the next highest state, according to analysis by a Salt Lake City investment fraud attorney. Okay, but that's not targeting it down to Utah County within Utah, and that still the numbers seem, you know, interesting, but there were a lot of facts in there that just were not cited correctly, you know, and it started really bothering me, along with the author having a bit of a flippant tone and kind of editorializing on things like, oh, isn't that the worst? Oh, this really means this, when it wasn't explicitly stated. It just felt like the author was creating a narrative without doing really his due diligence on everything. It felt a little weird, especially when it's a book trying to disprove another book. I want to feel like it's super factual. Another one that I thought was particularly egregious was he was talking about in one of Beatrice Sparks's books. It had some reviews from doctors included in there. And he looked up the names for those doctors and said that they do not exist. But specifically, in the book, he says, Ancestry.com has no trace of a Milton Norbaum and doesn't have these ones. He did it based on Ancestry.com. Not to say that Ancestry.com doesn't have some really useful information, but based on privacy laws, this took place in the 70s and 80s. They could very well still be alive, and based on privacy laws and such, most records are not available for living people on these family history sites. So the way he was doing his research makes no sense. I'm like, this is sloppy. And saying, yeah, look, I definitely did my research on that, does not give me any confidence in the rest of the facts presented in the book. So at the end, he includes an author's note. And I have never seen an author's note like this at the end of a nonfiction book. And I thought it was pretty interesting. He said, I thought long and hard about whether to include pages and pages of citations for every last stat and statement. In the end, I didn't. Here's why. The book's contents fall into three basic categories. One, things that are both public and checkable. Things that aren't public per se, but are still checkable. Or things that aren't public and for reasons of privacy aren't currently checkable. Who just says, I'm not going to give you any of my sources, you can Google it if you doubt me? Especially because I feel like these are facts that he's including that weren't easily checkable. I would like some backup, right? I've never seen that at the end of a nonfiction. So overall, this book, it was written somewhat engagingly, a little too flippantly, and had really interesting subject matter, but just it didn't do it. It was not a good nonfiction book. It wasn't well researched, and if it was well researched, it was not cited correctly. I needed that. And I'm not often reading my nonfiction books like, give me the source on that and give me the source on that, but there were enough claims in this that gave me enough pause that I thought, can I see a source on this? So I found this really frustrating. This book had a lot of topics that are really worth a good discussion. I mean, talking about teenage depression and suicide, parents' reactions. These parents, a lot of them, were just desperately looking for reasons why their kids were struggling or had depression. These parents had to really find things to attribute it to, and it was much easier to say, oh, they must have been involved in the occult, or oh, it was drugs, instead of saying, oh, maybe our kids are having some mental health issues and need better support, or maybe it's something in the way that we're raising them that is not working. And I think that those are really interesting avenues to explore. Also, the mass hysteria and the modern day actual witch hunts, looking for people who are involved in ritual sacrifice or whatever. I think that there are so many avenues that would be very interesting to explore from this book, but I just feel like none of it was done very well. I don't recommend this book, and I just find myself angry about how things were presented because I wanted to like this book. And so if you read nonfiction, when do you get that red flag, like, this isn't as nonfiction as I would like it to be? When do you feel this isn't done well enough to really be giving me truth? So, let me know if you have any thoughts on that in the comments down below, because this one I thought it was just really poorly done, which was a shame. Now, for a very, very good nonfiction, we jump over to We Don't Know Ourselves, A Personal History of Modern Ireland by Fintan O'Toole. And this is a history of modern Ireland and a little bit of a, autobiography thrown in. And, for believability, this man has been a journalist for many, many years. He has lived through a lot of these events, talked to many of the people, and his analysis was really, in depth. he understood the subject matter and he knew how to present it. And him talking about just the nature of Irish identity and how it has changed over time. He really delves deeply into how the Catholic Church has influenced Irish culture and how the corruption of politicians is affecting Irish life. Like, I think there were a lot of really interesting things in this, and I just think it was really, really well done. My only thing is that I think I'm glad that I had a little context, that I've read some about the Troubles, I know a little bit. It's really talking about that sense of identity, and I think that somebody who grew up in that might really connect to it very strongly. As I did not grow up in Ireland, I still really enjoyed the book. I wasn't aware of all the events taking place in Ireland during this time period, but it was very interesting to kind of get an overview, to understand, and to kind of see how things are moving into the future. So I thought this was an excellent book, great nonfiction, highly recommend this one, 5 stars. I read the first 2 volumes of Heartstopper because I wanted to try out a graphic novel. And so I read the first 2, I'm on hold for the 3rd. It's cute. If you haven't read Heartstopper, you might as well, because do you know how long it took me to read this book? 10 minutes. I don't think I get quite the appeal of graphic novels. Generally, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed both volumes. I want to read all of them. I mean, I might as well, but they take 10 minutes. Am I supposed to enjoy it slower? Is there some way to enjoy these that doesn't take 10 minutes? Because I'm like, I was on hold for this book and I'm done. I finished the book. So it was good. I don't know if you have recommendations for graphic novels. I really have avoided them. It's just a genre I haven't really gotten into, but I wanted to start with something light and fluffy, and it was light and fluffy, and each book took 10 minutes to get through. So if you have recommendations on how I should go about enjoying these, let me know. If not, I'm going to probably read all of them. They were fun, light, fluffy, sweet, like perfectly fine, but I just don't get it. Like, am I supposed to just sit there and stare at the artwork for longer? They are cute. I can see why people like them. I just don't know. But I'll let you know when I finish the other ones if I come to a different conclusion, and if you have recommendations on how I should go about the next ones so it doesn't take only 10 minutes, let me know. Oh, and also I did read The Keening by Margaret Pinard, and she is an amazing booktuber and author-tuber here on YouTube. And if you want to check out any of her work, make sure to check her channel out. I'll link it down below. The book is following a family who is forced out of their home in Scotland, so if you are interested, really check her out. She has a delightful channel and has written quite a few books, so if you're interested, I'll leave a link down below. If you have thoughts on any of these books, make sure to leave them in the comments down below, and I should be back soon with another book wrap-up, and I will see you all on the next one.